And today we have a very, very special guest. I am truly honored to have this gentleman on our show, and I know that as you listen to what unfolds here for the next 30 minutes, you also are going to feel honored to have heard a conversation with Don Miguel Ruiz, author of the phenomenally best-selling book, The Four Agreements, as well as The Mastery of Love and The Voice of Knowledge. Miguel Ruiz, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much. It's an honor to be with all of you.
Okay. You know, one of the main principles that come across through your work is how we cause ourselves distress by trying to be what we are not. Could you explore that a little bit with us?
Well, we can say that during the period of our education, when we grow up, we learn that it was not safe to be ourselves. They always tell us that we need to be something else. We was looking for a concept of perfection. Then at school, at church, our parents, friends, whoever, all the time come to us and tell us that nobody's perfect and you should be perfect. Then we grow up trying to be good enough for our father, our mother, the teacher, the big brother. We always trying, and we judge ourselves for not being perfect without knowing that that concept of perfection is completely wrong.
How do you then reconcile in your book, The Four Agreements? One of the four agreements that we need to make with ourselves is the agreement to always try our best. So how is that different from feeling that we need to be better than we are?
Well, like we say before, doing your best is the only thing that you really can do. You cannot do more or less. If we are aware of that, we can see that we don't really need to be perfect according to other people's point of view. We just need to be ourselves.
So when we do our best and then we start beating ourselves up because we feel or worry that our best is not good enough, that's what you call the parasite, isn't it?
Yes, that's the reason of that is because we believe other people's opinions, other people's point of view. And according to people's point of view, nothing is really perfect. Perfection doesn't exist in that point of view. But if we really see the truth, we will find out that everything that exists in the universe is perfect. You know, the stars are perfect, the atoms are perfect, every living being is perfect, then only perfection exists. How come humans don't consider themselves perfect? This is just because we lie to ourselves and we lie to each other. Because this is the real conflict that we really have. Is the conflict is between the truth and lies. It's not really between good and evil. This is just a result of what we believe. But when we believe the truth, we only see perfection. We are perfect. Everybody's perfect. Even the things that we believe is not perfect is really perfect. We just don't have that awareness.
So I assume that getting that awareness is what you call waking up from the dream. What can we do to wake up from that dream?
Well, first of all, just to be aware that more than the, let's say, 80-90% of what we believe is not truth.
What's the most important thing you feel that a human being can do with their lives beginning right now?
Well, the first is to accept ourselves just the way we are.
Before trying to change your life or pay the bills or be responsible, that's the highest form of responsibility.
Yes, this is the very first thing we need to do. Just to see ourselves and accept ourselves just the way we are.
And to accept ourselves means that when we are feeling a lack of self-acceptance, to regard that as a lie.
Yes, over any judgment that we have against ourselves. Even that we feel really bad. This is the worst thing that can happen to us. But when we accept ourselves, it's the first step in order to return to be authentic, to be ourselves, to be what we really are.
What does it mean in the Four Agreements? And we're speaking with Don Miguel Ruiz, best-selling author of The Four Agreements, as well as The Mastery of Love, which, by the way, is one of the best books on relationships I've ever read, as well as The Voice of Knowledge. And in the Four Agreements, you talk about the importance of practicing the impeccability of speech. Could you?
Well,
how does that relate to what we're discussing right now?
Well, the impeccability of the word. The word is the symbol that we use in order to communicate with each other and in order to communicate with ourselves. And the word as a symbol only exists because we create it, because we believe in that. And it's what we use in order to see the whole universe, to explain our lives, to explain everything around us. But it's really just a symbol that we create. Then if we are impeccable with the word, that means that we never use all the symbology that we know, all the knowledge that we have against ourselves, but we use it in order to support our own existence.
So how do we use our words in a harmful way?
Well, every time that we gossip about ourselves and we gossip about other people, all that gossiping always will return to us. We live in a wonderful dream, but with the word, we create a story about that dream. And that story is really about ourselves, about our point of view, about everything that exists. Then there's so many ways to tell the same story. We can be the greatest heroes if we say the story in a certain way, or the worst victims if we tell our story in a different way.
So we have to become more aware of the story we're telling ourselves, because whatever story we're telling another person, we're telling ourselves, and then we have to be aware of how that is affecting us.
Yes, and we can see that every time that we repeat the story, we change everything. Like if we tell the story of our life to 10 different people, there will be 10 different stories. And all will depends of the way we feel in that moment. Let's see that if we are happy and we tell the story of our life, will be a happy story what we're telling about ourselves. But if we are angry or we are with hate or we are depressed and we tell our story with somebody else, it will be a very sad story.
In your book, The Mastery of Love, one of the central concepts that you focus on is the fact that when we're in a relationship, our focus needs to be on making ourselves happy and not on trying to control the other person to get them to make us happy. And as I focused on that, I found a tremendous amount of freedom, and I found myself to be a more loving person as opposed to a more selfish person.
Yes, we can say that in every relationship is made by two halves. It always is between two halves. And you are one of the halves. The other half could be or your father, your mother, your wife, your son, your daughter, your friend, or the entire society can be the other half. Then in every relationship is completely different. But you are only responsible for one half, your own half. You are not responsible for the other half. You are not responsible of whatever your father thinks or your mother or your wife or the entire society. You are only responsible for your half. And if you are sure that your half is okay, then the entire relationship will be okay.
So when we fall into a pattern of blaming or criticizing or complaining, struggling to get our mate to do something that we want, what we're really doing at that moment is making our mate responsible for our happiness and making ourselves miserable in the process.
Yes, and what we do in that way is to put both halves down. It's not just ourselves, just whoever is around us we put it down with that. Then we don't want to see our own fault. We always want to justify by blaming the other half.
How would you apply that to parenting, to the relationship between a parent and a child?
About the what? I'm sorry, didn't
How would you apply the principle that we're talking about right now, the principle of focusing on being responsible for your own happiness? How would you apply that to the parent-child relationship?
Okay, but perfect. It's just the same way that a relationship that you have with your dog. The dog is a dog, and in that half is perfect. If something is not working in the relationship between you and your dog, it's not because the dog, it's because of you. And it's exactly the same thing with your child. A child is a child and always going to be a child. Is programmed to be a child, as the dog is programmed to be a dog, or a cat is programmed to be a cat. If something is not working in that relationship, it's your half.
And so what the parent needs to recognize is, I'm blaming my child for how frustrated I am,
Exactly.
but how frustrated I am is how I'm abusing myself and expecting my child to save me.
And the thing is that we abuse our child because we was abused when we were children, and that's what we learn from our parents, and becomes a whole chain. Then what really needs to happen is for the parents to change. Because, the children, they will learn everything, not just what you say, but they will learn what you do. They will learn the relationship that you have with your wife, with friends, with relatives, and looks like they're just playing, but they're learning. Then they grow up and they will become a copy of you.
If someone is listening right now and they're feeling like they're suffering a good deal, they're experiencing a lot of suffering, and then they hear us discuss the fact or the perspective that life is a dream. When you say life is a dream, what do you mean by that?
Well, let's see. Everything that you perceive is nothing but light. It looks like you perceive a whole world of objects where millions of objects exist, but this is not exactly true. What really is happening is that the light that comes from the sun is being reflected for every single object, and that goes directly into your eye and is projecting every single image in your eye. Then what you're perceiving, really, what you see, is the projection of what really exists outside. It's an image of what really exists outside. If you give sense to that image that you use the word, which is your reason, to explain, to justify everything that you perceive, then the image becomes imagination, becomes a dream. Then you're really dreaming. And it's just your point of view. And the point of view will depend of everything that you know, that all the knowledge that you accumulate during your whole life. Then your dream, the way you dream life, will be completely different than your wife dream life, or your father, or your mother, or your friend dreams life. In their dream, they are the center of the universe, the center of the world, as you are in your dream.
What is the difference between self-acceptance, as you mean it, and a person just becoming lazy and settling for whatever happens, not bothering to try their best?
Well, it's a big difference, because the one who is so lazy is really because that person gave up. It's not really that accept themselves the way they are. No, they just gave up.
So a person who's not trying their best in life is actually rejecting themselves.
Yes, and certain point they reject themselves, and that nobody else can reject them. Then instead of going look for a job before they say, "Oh, who's going to employ me?" Or someone who feels love for somebody else, it rejects himself. Say, "Well, she's going to say no to me. Why try? Why do that? Why do that?" Then it's easy just to stay on a couch watching TV or doing nothing.
We're speaking to Don. You're listening to Bob Blanchard's Parenting Solutions, by the way, a show that focuses as much on the raising of ourselves as the raising of our children, because you can't expect children to behave well in the society of adults behaving poorly. And we're having a conversation right now with Don Miguel Ruiz, the best-selling author of The Four Agreements, as well as The Mastery of Love and The Voice of Knowledge. In order for an individual... Well, let me step back a moment and ask you this question. Why do you think there's so much poverty in the world?
Well, there's so many reasons. And, this is the result of millions of people dreaming together and have that interaction. And the way they dream themselves is really what we can call hell, according whatever religion that we believe. And that hell is nothing but a nightmare. And number one is the result of believing all those lies that we learn when we grow up, all those lies that rule society, and believe that those lies are the truth. Then in that nightmare is a place of punishment, a place where that you are afraid, is a place where you don't deserve anything. But this is only because we believe all those lies. If we stop believing those lies, the dream can change. We can create a completely different dream, because we was born really with the right to be happy, to enjoy life, to create, to be free of all those lies.
Well, what do you feel? You've met Oprah, is that right?
Yeah.
She's a tremendous fan of your book.
Yeah.
What is it that causes people to become wealthy, to go from the poverty that she went to into great wealth? Does a person have to sacrifice their spiritual well-being to become extremely wealthy, a billionaire on Earth?
Not at all. The first step is, well, like we said before, awareness, to be aware. With awareness, we relearn to love ourselves. Once that we love ourselves, we're going to give to ourselves the best we can. We can have a wonderful, beautiful dream in our life. And, life is so generous that life brings opportunities to everybody. The problem is that most of the people reject all those opportunities.
How can we be better at recognizing our opportunities?
Once again, the whole thing is about to be awareness, to stop believing all those lies, to believe the truth. And when we say the truth, there's no words to explain it. The truth just exists. Like you see the sun, that is truth. You see your whole physical body, this is truth. You have your feelings. What you feel is truth. But the reason why you feel what you feel is not truth. That voice in your head who is always judging you, always find you guilty, always punishing you, this is the reason why we suffer, because we believe something that is not true. But the suffering is real. It comes directly from our integrity. And all that suffering, what it's telling us is that we are being abused. And what abuses is mainly ourselves with our own thoughts.
What about when a person is actually doing something that is against integrity, that lacks compassion, that is in a cruel way?
What example?
Like what example? Like let's say going to war in order to make a few people rich and killing thousands and thousands of people in the process, and not really being concerned with their impact on a larger group of people.
Well, in the kind of society that we have, many of the people that go to war, they go against their own will. there are very few the ones who really go because they believe in that war.
No, I mean the people who send them to war. I don't mean the people who actually go there and fight.
Uh-huh.
But it seems like we have a society, maybe this is part of a dream, but it seems like we have a society in which a few people own a lot of weapons and they send people to war, not necessarily for the sake of the best good of everyone, but out of their own fear and greed.
Well, you can see that the whole thing is an act of selfishness.
Right.
They only think about themselves, and they think about...
Are we a victim of those people?
Well, I guess the most of the people in society are victim of all those people. And they're victim because they still believe in all those lies. You know, the publicity says so many lies, and we believe. You know, if you repeat a lie 10,000 times, very soon everybody will believe all those lies.
So how can we not be a victim of what other people are doing who seem to have wealth and power?
Well, there's two rules that everybody should follow if they really want to make a difference. And the rule number one is don't believe anybody, but learn to listen. This is a very easy rule to follow. But the second one is even more difficult, and it's don't believe yourself, but learn to listen what you say. Then the key is learn to listen. Don't believe them, but learn to listen. Don't believe yourself, but learn to listen. Because let's see, if you are the one who is talking in your head, then who is listening?
Who is listening?
Yeah.
So the listener is
the real you.
Is the real you.
Yes.
The one that you're feeding all this negative information to.
Yes. And the one who is talking is nothing but all those symbols that we learn. It's the language that we learn who is talking. And when we was born, we didn't knew any language. We didn't have any symbology.
In reality,
yes.
Is every person free to fulfill their own greatest dream?
Exactly.
We are free to fulfill our own greatest dream.
And this is exactly the key. Don't believe yourself. Don't believe anybody else, but learn to listen. And
go for what you want?
Exactly.
Are there any words of wisdom, Miguel? Author. We're speaking again with Don Miguel Ruiz, author of The Four Agreements, The Mastery of Love, The Voice of Knowledge. These books are available everywhere. They are so simple, and yet as I go through them, they're so powerful at the same time. What words of or wisdom would you like to leave our listeners with today as we draw our show to a close?
Okay, just be aware that what we are right now is the result of what we learned from our parents, from our ancestors. And be aware that our children is learning from us not just what we say, but what we do also. Then if we want to break that chain and really make our children the priority, what we need to do is change ourselves. Our children will learn when we change ourselves, and they will become like us. Then if we break that chain and we become free, our children will also be free.
Well, it's my prayer that we all set everyone else free from our need to have them make us happy. And I want to thank you so much, Miguel Ruiz, for being on the program. And the books are available everywhere. The Four Agreements, The Voice of Knowledge, The Mastery of Love. And if you want more information about Miguel Ruiz, you can go to his website at www.miguelruiz.com.